Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I am your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 144 with Sean Rivers. He is working to be like a life coach, working through like storytelling, talking about people's lives, trying to like repaint the narrative that we tell ourselves to help us better ourselves, basically. And he has a podcast as well called the Growth by Sean podcast. Check that out. If you want to listen to that episode, you can go on to thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you like to watch your podcast, you can go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection or Jared M. Carroll. Should pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, you can hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. Just give me some time. It is summer, so trying to plan that stuff far out. So maybe be looking towards like later summer, fall, basically at this point. I do have two new guests today for episode 145, bringing in Angela and Adam. How you guys doing?
Howdy.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you guys. And I'm going to shout out Jeff LePage. He was able to kind of like link us up a little bit. I know you're a brand ambassador for Simple Salt Solutions.
Yes,
so saw that and saw your page a little bit and I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. You asked if Angela could come on. Saw your page. I was like, absolutely. So I'm really excited to have you guys on the podcast. What I'd like to do a little bit is kind of just who you are and what you're doing currently. So Adam, I'll let you go first.
Adam Gold. I am I'd say performance specialist, strength and conditioning coach, rehab guy, whatever you want to call it, personal trainer extraordinaire, like all of the above, entrepreneur. And yeah, I work in a physical therapy clinic right now, basically underneath PTs. So I do all the dirty work below them. Working on potentially becoming a PT, potentially growing a business in the personal training and strength and conditioning space. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Perfect. Angela?
Well, I'm Angela Pyne. I'm a graphic designer based in Boston. I went to Northeastern for my undergrad, and then after graduating, I got a job at a clothing brand called Ministry of Supply. And yeah, I worked there full time, but I also been working on my freelance career on the side.
Perfect. And we're going to dive into both of these things as we progress through the podcast. I like to kind of start off the podcast talking about like family dynamic, a little bit of childhood stuff, and for any new listeners, I like to kind of paint why I do this. And we're talking about you guys' life here. So when we're talking about life, and I try to paint this analogy that if you're building a house, you want a great foundation. So, and I believe basically our family and like our childhood is like the foundation of our life story. So I like to ask a little bit just to kind of gain some insight into kind of like how you guys were growing up and like a little bit about your family. Obviously we have two guests, we have limited time, so we're going to try to scrunch a little bit to focus more on like the heavy hitting stuff at the end of the podcast. So Adam, I'll let you go first with family dynamic and a little bit of like the childhood stuff, as much as you feel comfortable with, obviously. So I'll let you take the floor with that.
Sure thing. Yeah. I would say family dynamic growing up was great. My family has pretty much given me everything that I have and continue, like I still live with them. They continue to support me with like every single endeavor I've gone through. So they've been great. I have obviously mom, dad, brother, sister. Sister's a little bit older than me. Brother's a little bit younger than me. So I'm right in the middle. And yeah, I think growing up, I was a super quiet kid. Like my social skills were like -7, like real bad. And I think that kind of set the standard for who I was going to become. Kind of like doing a lot of things on my own and without like having a ton of social skills. Just like learning to navigate life alone a lot of times. And I've definitely since later high school, early college, like I've definitely found ways to build on those skills. And I would say now, like that's probably one of my stronger suits. I work with people all day. My life is a 24/7 podcast of people's lives, patients that I'm working with, like constantly talking to them, digging into like what they're doing, what their life looks like and how they're feeling. But that's what it was like growing up. I was super quiet. My mom, she basically predicted my future. She told me as I was going into college, he was like, yeah, do physical therapy, look into ROTC. I ended up choosing to not do either of those things at the time, and ended up coming back 4 years later and am now trying to get back into those places. Whereas if I had just said, okay, mom, you're right, I probably would be way farther ahead. But you live and you learn. But yeah, my family's great. Um, everything's good, and we keep rolling.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Angela?
I don't know where to begin. So I grew up in a pretty small family. It's just like me, my sister, my dad, and my mom, and our grandfather lived with us. So like I got to live with him like right downstairs, and that was like a huge thing. We were all very close to him, and it was like having a third parent to learn from. But also he was like really old and like not old. I hate to call him old, but I mean he was just very wise. Like he was in World War II, and he had seen a lot. He lived in Dorchester, grew up there, and like moved the family out to the suburbs. And so like my family really didn't come from much, and neither did my dad's side. Like they were big hustlers. My dad in high school or after high school, he like started his own painting business and didn't even go to college till he was 28 years old. So I was very much raised with the idea of like just doing whatever your interest really brought you and like never stress about having to follow a specific path. Just follow what you're really interested in. And my parents never really put any pressure on me to go to college. They wanted me to do good in school, but never really pressured me to go into a certain field. But my grandfather always told me just make money. Like do something that makes money. And so while I was like younger, I was always like an artsy kid, like loved to dance, loved music, loved drawing and painting, but like I never really thought I was going to be an artist one day until I got to high school, and I was like, oh wait, like this stuff I could actually make a career out of it and I can make money from it. What if I'm able to like just lead with that path? And so I think my childhood of just like kind of being raised with the idea of like just do what you like doing, but also make sure it makes money was like kind of a good, like free way to grow up where I wasn't in any restrictions or anything like that. But they were all very supportive, even though even to this day, I don't think my parents really know what I do, but they're just happy for me. And so yeah, I have very supportive parents, like all growing up and grandparents. And then in 2018, I think. Yeah, 2018, my parents got divorced, and then a year ago, my grandfather passed away. So it's like switched up the family dynamic for sure. But it is something that I think, like, even though things have changed a lot, like those roots are still like ingrained in me, and I like live with them every single day.
Yeah, I think having a good structure with like good parents, good family dynamic, like really does set you up for a lot more success in life. Obviously, every family dynamic is different, and there's going to be instances where people might have both parents, and they might be a hindrance to them as well. So, like, I don't like to completely paint a blanket statement, but I think it's always important to ask these questions to kind of understand where you guys are coming from, because I come from my parents are still together. They always encourage me to play sports, like work hard, be consistent, don't do stupid shit, stay out of
Mhm.
trouble, and like very like stereotypical like textbook like stuff almost.
Mhm.
And I appreciate them for like kind of instilling a lot of their like beliefs and like values in me, because that allowed me to kind of like go through life like with a sense of just kind of like being loved and cared for. And I
Mhm.
think that instance definitely allows for you to kind of grow as a person, because like if you have you have the support of like your family like behind you when you're uh trying to like progress and like grow and like try to get something positive done with life, and whether it's sports or something creative, like knowing that your family cares about what you do and supports you and tries to push you in the right direction. And I think having the whole mindset of like do what you want but also make money is like a healthy like mix of that. And I think that's a really important value that I'm glad that they kind of like instilled in you, to kind of, hey, we want you to do what you want to do, but also like this world is driven by like finances, is driven like by capitalism. The dollar is king. So like at the end of the day, like make sure that you're able to like support yourself. And I think that's like a very important like aspect to like progressing in life. Wondering like childhood and stuff too. Like, did you guys play any sports? Like, did you have any specific hobbies like that like allowed you kind of like socialize basically with friends? I don't know who wants to go first. I'll probably go with Adam, right?
Sure thing.
We'll do
Yeah.
we'll keep doing the rotation that we
Yeah,
have.
that's
I think
cool.
it's good.
That's cool. Yeah, soccer was my thing all the way growing up, all the way through college. Like, especially when I was younger, that was me. That was me every day. Was just like me talking about like being alone a lot of time. I was just juggling a soccer ball, like literally just kicking a ball against my bed, like for like hours on end if I was bored. Um, and then I'd go with some friends and do that as well, and obviously with teams. But yeah, that was my thing for sure.
Yeah, I think just sports in general are like really important. I was a big football and baseball kid growing up, but I just think you can really tell the difference of who played sports growing up and like who didn't, especially with like whether not just sports in general, but like any type of like team ish activity. Like I think it's important as children to kind of like socialize with other kids, learn how to share, learn how to like win and lose. I think that is like very important in the growth. But Angela, I'll let you go now.
Yeah, I mean, I bounced around a bit more than Adam did. Like, I did figure skating. Me and my sister got really interested in that just naturally. My dad would take us to the rink for free skate, and like we just kind of taught ourselves like backwards crossovers and like spins and stuff. And we're like, oh, we could actually do something here. So we did that for a while on top of like dance, ballet. But then I really wanted to get into soccer, and so I started doing soccer in elementary school around then, and I just kind of stuck with that for a bit until I got to high school, tried out volleyball, realized I'm way too short for volleyball, but I loved playing, and then kind of went back to like soccer for a bit. But that's actually how me and Adam met. We were working at Four Kicks, and
Oh, okay,
we were
okay.
like soccer coaches to these like little kids, and that was a lot of fun, even though like sometimes chaotic. But I mean,
Very chaotic.
yeah, I think soccer was more of the prominent thing that I continued throughout life.
It's cool that you guys were able to like kind of like bond a little bit over the soccer thing too, and like that's how like you guys meet and stuff. I think that's like
Mm.
that's
That's not completely true.
Not
We actually
completely
met
true.
doing so we'd run like birthday parties. Like the
Yeah.
kid would show up with like 30 of his best friends, and we either
okay.
do they'd get to pick a sport, and this kid chose basketball,
Yeah,
and
we never
Angela's out on
coached
the
together.
yeah.
Like we were coaching, but we weren't coaching together. We met doing the birthday parties.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And this specific birthday party was a basketball one where
Yeah.
that Angela is running, and me, she has like negative basketball skills,
I
and they
just
like
learned
send
about
me out to like
basketball this
help
year.
her, and I just end up like running the party.
And you didn't realize until this year that I didn't know anything about basketball during that party. I just don't know anything. I've learned a
I
lot.
may have had a clue, a little bit of a clue.
But yeah.
Is it like a Teamworks kind of place almost where it's like I don't know if you know what Teamworks is.
No,
Like,
it's just
it's just
like
like has like a
indoor.
bunch of athletic stuff. Like has like the basketball courts, turf fields, like stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay,
just
same,
like
same
it's
thing.
soccer
Same thing.
focused, but they have a basketball court
Yeah.
as well.
Okay,
So like
yeah.
I originally got this job because of like they needed a soccer coach for like these little kid like soccer lessons. But then like our manager, she was like, well, we also like do these birthday parties. Let's do like, would you be down to do this? And I was like, yeah, more money, let's go. And so like the birthday parties would be sports focused, whether like soccer, basketball. Clearly I was not hired for the basketball part, but I would do a basketball party, or it would be like some kind of sport, kickball, and then like you would lead the birthday party, do the game, and then bring them upstairs to do the cake, ice cream, pizza, and all that. And like that was just like a nice extra thing on the side that you could do to get a little extra cash.
Yeah, I mean that's always good, and then obviously it led to a positive thing in you guys' lives. So that's,
Yeah.
I think that's really great. I want to now steer the conversation a little bit towards we're getting towards like senior year. Everyone's favorite question: what are you going to do after high school? Type thing. Adam, I'll let you kind of take the lead with this question first. Like, kind of like what were you going through at that time? What was kind of like the path in front of you, and what ultimately did you end up choosing?
Yeah, I still had no idea what I really wanted to do in life as a senior in high school. I ended up choosing going to University of Rhode Island for my freshman year, literally based off of like nothing specific. It was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go there and just see what happens. I had offers to play, not technically offers, but like the coach had reached out to me and said, "We want you to come play at Bridgewater State Division 3." I turned it down because I didn't think I wanted to continue playing soccer. I was like, yeah, I want to try like going to a bigger school, like having some fun, maybe just like being a frat boy and seeing how that goes. I ended up trying to do that, and I chose the complete wrong group of people to hang out with. Joined a pledge of frat, spent 90% of my time doing stupid frat stuff that you do, which my brother is going through now, and he's like, just goes to show, like, if you certain types of people can thrive in certain situations, and those other people in the same exact situation are going to hate their lives. And that's what ended up happening to me. Like, all my brothers were having the time of their lives. I was like, this is not it. Like, I'm an athlete. I need to be around people who are like driven and want to like perform. And I was just not in the right place. So I ended up doing my full year at URI, and then making the move back to Bridgewater for the fall my sophomore year. And that's where things kind of like started to click a little bit for me, like getting into obviously a college sports team, and like we did really well that year. And that was my first year where I actually won something. Like, my whole high school career, we didn't win. We won 3 games. I played varsity all 4 years. We won 3 games my whole career. So like I learned how to lose really, really well. So coming back, like actually getting on the field, starting for like NCAA games, we ended up winning our league. We ended up going to the tournament, losing in the first round. But like that was the first year I was like actually feeling like, okay, like this is what it feels like to win things. I was like, damn, like that feels good. So like from there, I was like, yeah, I just want to keep doing that. Like whatever it takes, I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm not going back.
Yeah, I would say I had a similar experience in football where we lost way more than we won. And I think it's funny that like in the moments, like, damn, these losses, like football was my life. Like it was like I ate it, breathed it, slept it. Just everything about me was like the sports kid in high school. I had a buzz cut, just a goatee, like totally different like energy. And I was just the one that took it so serious. Like I just like it was my entire identity as a person. And then like looking back on it, like I get so pissed at the losses, but like the losses were like huge in my development and growth was just like how to overcome this. And like my favorite thing that um my former coach, Vernon Crawford, former New England Patriot, he would always say after like losses is like you guys have to look yourselves in the mirror. And like I take things sometimes literally, and I would like literally like, sit myself in front of a mirror and just kind of like meditate almost, and like just kind of like what am I doing? Like, am I doing something wrong? And like I ended up being in kind of like quote unquote leadership positions, being like a captain and stuff, and trying to get a group of people who just are completely different, who just want to have fun, who don't take things completely seriously all the time. You have to learn how to manage different like personalities and like also manage your own and like try to figure out like how you fit into this group, how you can like add to this group. And I wasn't very vocal back then. Like I was definitely like I prefer more of like the co-captain role where my other captain, he can do all the talking. He can yell at the guys. I wanted to sit back and just kind of like do things the right way, just lead by example. That was kind of always like the way I was raised was lead by example. And that experience, like especially looking back on it, was definitely monumental in me, like kind of like learning how to get my voice and like how to just stand up for myself. And just football humbles you pretty quickly when you get hit in the mouth. So it's like you have to kind of like get up and just kind of keep moving. And just being like kind of like a shorter guy, like that's something I had to like learn. Is just you might be one of the shorter guys in the field, but doesn't mean you can't be one of the better players. And I think that's like so important to like constantly keep pushing through that and like working through that. Is like we all have insecurities at the end of the day, but like trying to like kind of like grow and like move through that is like very important, and sports do allow that. So I think it's really cool that you were able to kind of see that kind of difference going into like from high school into kind of college, going through that kind of the fratty experience. And like I would agree that's definitely not something I would have enjoyed either.
Yeah.
But like figuring that out and like kind of changing gears, like that's like really impressive for someone to do at a young age, is to kind of like experience something like this is not for me and then move past it. I
Yeah.
think that's like really great that you were able to do that. But I'll allow Angela kind of to dive into the same thing with like kind of the college experience. Like what after high school, like what was the path for you basically?
Yeah, so I mean, I am very lucky where I kind of realized around junior year that I wanted to do graphic design. So I had my eyes set. And so, like, the summer before senior year, I did an internship. I was like, this will help me get into a good school. And, like, took AP design. Like, I basically, the sooner I knew what I wanted to do, I structured everything to get myself there. And so I didn't know if I wanted to stay in Massachusetts or go elsewhere. And because of financial reasons, like, I think I didn't apply to schools that I knew that I could really get into, or, like, because of it would be too expensive. And so my first semester, I spent a semester at Suffolk University and I hated it. Like, it was terrible. Like, I didn't mesh with any of the people, but also the program was just so, like, I don't know, it wasn't challenging at all. Like, I was getting straight A's and I was like, I'm not even really trying. Like, this needs to be a bit more hard. And so that fall I applied to just Northeastern, and I was like, okay, I'm either gonna get in, or if I don't get in, I'm taking a gap semester and then I'm gonna go to Colorado and go to school out there. And so I just applied there, and like I talked to my parents, I'm like, I know it's gonna be a lot of money. And my mom was like, no, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. And I was really happy that they had my back, like very thankful for their support because it is an expensive school. And so like I got in and I was like shocked that I even got in, but I was like, great. And so I just jumped right into that. And I had like the best, like 4 years, 5 years there because co-op, 5 years at Northeastern. Um, and I'm just like really thankful that like that senior year that I stuck with what I knew what I wanted to do, because I know a lot of other people might have been like in between, because it's very hard to know what you want to do at that age. And I think I just got lucky that I did. But I mean, it ended up working out. But I think getting into a school and realizing that you don't mesh with anybody there and you don't like the curriculum, and like being able to step up and be like, no, I can handle more. Like that takes a lot of being able to like see inside yourself and like kind of admit to yourself that you deserve better. And that can be really scary because like restarting is really hard no matter what age you are. And especially when you're still like only 19 years old, like applying to whole other schools and like taking a gamble that that's going to be the one that fixes everything. It takes a lot of introspection. And I'm just grateful that I did, because I could have just sucked it up and been like, whatever, like I'll just stay here because it's more affordable. But in the end, I'm glad that I took the leap. It ended up working out.
Yeah, I think that's really great that we kind of all have an experience of like doing something and then having to change gears. And I think that is like so important in like the development of like people, is like being able to kind of like overcome things, and having that experience early on is just going to set you up for more success later on. So I think that's really great that you were able to kind of like go through it and like be like, yeah, this is just not serving me anymore. And
Mhm.
like being able to like pivot and do that, especially during those college years where things are just chaotic. The finances are kind of like staring at you in the face on top of that. And like
Mhm.
you're making a decision for your entire life, basically,
Mhm.
like to figure it out in like 4 or 5 years. And it's like, this is why like the whole narrative with like college is like very like weird right now. Is like, especially with inflation, the cost of college is like ridiculous right now. And like, as someone who works in accounting finance, who specifically works with like student loans, like I can understand like the crippling effect of like student loan debt that is having on people, and like trying to like manage that. And like most people don't realize that 18, like these loans are with you. Like you
Mhm.
don't bankrupt, you can't go bankrupt on these loans. These loans follow you for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
So it's like when you're going to these universities, like figuring out what's going to be best for you is
Mhm.
super important, but also figuring out how you're going to pay this back.
Mhm.
Because like you don't want to go and get a degree where it like really restricts you financially,
Mhm.
where it's going to be hard to get a house, it's going to be hard to get an apartment, it's going to be hard
Mhm.
to live your life that you really want to, when you have these, unfortunately, like these predatory loans that like hunt you down for the rest of your life. And it's really unfortunate that our education system hasn't caught up with like the way the rest of the world
It's
views
working.
education.
Yeah.
And it's just very frustrating as someone who would promote education, I had a great experience at college, I got a great degree, I was very happy with the experience that I had. And I just, it's unfortunate to see that's the way the education system in terms of finances is going,
I
that
know.
it's really cap stricken a lot of people. But for the most part, it sounds like you both have experienced good things and progressing into your careers now. I kind of
Mhm.
want to talk kind of how you ended up where you are right now, and you can go into a little bit more detail. This is more of the fun stuff now, so we can get into
Yeah.
the great stuff. Adam, I'll let you go first, kind of like as you're going through college, like getting towards your career, and how you ultimately ended up there.
Yeah, for sure. So even towards my junior year, going into senior year, it was kind of interesting because COVID had happened during
2020.
right. Yeah. So I was abroad when COVID happened. I was in Valencia, Spain. COVID happened like 2 months into my time there, and I got sent home, and um, dealt with that. Everybody kind of dealt with that in their own ways. I ended up just getting outdoors more and going hiking a ton. And
Before you go into that, I want to dig into a little bit with the Spain thing. Like, so you studied abroad. Like, how was that experience?
it was great. It was awesome. I think I partied a little bit too hard. Like I think I burned myself out, just staying out until like 5 a.m. every night for the first 2 weeks, pretty quickly. But it was awesome. I got to do an internship with some rugby guys over there, and see how that, like, the strength and conditioning side of that worked, which was awesome. I got to take some cool classes, meet some cool people. Unfortunately, I didn't get to travel too much around the rest of Europe, which, like, I had trips planned like every weekend pretty much, like from the week that before that I got sent home. But we'll get there eventually. But it was a good trip. I mean, yeah, study abroad. If you get the chance to do it, for anybody out there, definitely send it.
Yeah, I would definitely do
Definitely
it.
send it. Yeah. But yeah, so I got home, dealt with COVID. I had 2 years of soccer at that point under my belt, and um, that had kind of like set the standard for me for, like, in terms of like discipline and consistency and like just building like a strong foundation. So I didn't really feel like in high school like I built that too much through sports or through school, because we didn't have a strong program in school, or for me in sports. But yeah, so I was like kind of starting to like form that foundation of like being a solid human, but not fully there yet. Um, and by the time I graduated, I still like had no idea what I was gonna do. Like I didn't even understand that like my degree in exercise science like equated to being like a personal trainer on the outside. Like I never really thought about how that like equates to like real world value. And my plan was, as stupid as it sounds, I was going to like buy a Jeep, put a roof tent on it, and just go like travel around like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and just like live out of that Jeep for like a certain period of time. And that was like my idea. I ended up going into the military because I had a few conversations with my parents, and like I realized some things, and I was like, yeah, that's probably not the best idea. Like I'm coming out of college, like I'm probably gonna have some loans to pay off. Probably not gonna put me in the best spot to do that. Um, so I was like, and the military was something I had always thought about. A lot of like role models for me had come out of the military, especially in like special operations units, which is something that like had always intrigued me. Like David Goggins type, who honestly looking at now is a huge figure, and like a lot of people know him. And I have a lot of respect for the dude, but I don't think like for a lot of people he can be a good catalyst, but like I don't think like framing your life after his life is like the best idea always. 'Cause he's kind of like seems very like self-centered, and like if you push yourself to that limit every day, you don't really have energy to give to other people. So anyways, I ended up joining Army National Guard, signed a contract with them, and just shipped out to basic training like a month or two after I graduated from school. And that was definitely like a turning point for me. Going through that experience where it's like I was a college graduate, um, whereas like a lot of people that go to basic training are like 18-year-old kids who just got out of high school, have zero other options. And I was like, it was eye opening for sure. Um, but that experience like definitely set the standard for like what my life is going to look like the level of discipline, um, the level of consistency, and like just like I don't know what you can accomplish if you are consistent and disciplined in your pursuits, basically.
Yeah, I think with the military, it kind of goes hand in hand with like the career that you chose too. Is like being able to be disciplined. Like you need to have those traits, especially working whether it is like in PT or just like in physical therapy or being a personal trainer.
Hmm.
Like you need to be able to show up for your patients, your clients, like the customers. Basically, you need to be there for them. And if you're not able to have those kind of like structures and boundaries up, it's going to be very difficult to be there for them. And I mean, it already sounded like you were very pretty grounded before the military, anyways, and like that just kind of adds like another layer on for you.
Yeah,
Um, I definitely would have been encouraging the whole New Hampshire trip. That's something I looked at as well, just kind of like getting like a nice like vehicle or a van or something, kind of doing van life and trying to get that. But like obviously, it's like how do you pay for that with like all that stuff, especially coming out of college is a difficult ask for someone graduating. But I think that sounds like very enticing. Like I just like that idea of that kind of that energy that goes into that, and like I definitely respect a lot of people who do the van life, who do the schooly life. That's like something that like I wish that like I could have had that experience, but like then I'm like I also like a nice bed and nice shower at the end of every day. So like
Mhm.
I just kind of like I think about that. I'm like I don't know about all that, but I think for talking about just like consistency and stuff like that, it is like what for me one of the most like fundamental like parts of my life is like being consistent, whether it's just like as basic as like making your bed every day or going to work, brushing your teeth, like just like if you set up like a workout schedule, sticking to that workout schedule. If I'm going to do a podcast, sticking to that podcast schedule, like holding yourself accountable, like accountability and consistency for me go hand in hand. And then on top of that is like the self awareness to be able to implement those traits and those things into your life are super valuable. I want to pass back to Angela to allow you to kind of go into your career, how you ended up there, kind of like
Mhm.
from like college, like graduating into what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So kind of like what I mentioned, I knew really what I wanted to do, like right off the bat. So all through college, like I always worked like different jobs. Like I worked at Whole Foods for a bit. I worked at a clothing company, like at just retail, and then I worked at like Warby Parker selling eyeglasses. Like all these different jobs that like had nothing to do with what I actually wanted to do. Just like kind of find it like found money in it to like fund my college life and bills. And I remember like going through these jobs and like always like you always meet like random people in these jobs that are like in different lives than you and in different like stages than you. And I remember just always feeling like there were some people that always took those jobs very seriously. Like when I worked at retail, there were some people that are like, "Oh, I really want to like grow in this company." And when I worked at Warby, like there were people that were like, "Yeah, I want to like really work here and like work my way up." And like that's great for those people, but like they would take it so seriously and I maybe I don't think it made me a bad employee, but I just always was like, "Yeah, this is just like I'm out of here at some point. Like, this is not my life. This is not what I'm interested. I'm not selling glasses for the rest of my life." And so I just always like knew inside me that this is just a stepping stone and like I need to be at the bottom for a little bit, make my money doing this, but I'm eventually going to get to where I wanted to be. And so in at Northeastern, you have like a co-op program where you work for a full semester, full time. You don't take classes, you just work. And so you usually do that around like your sophomore, junior year. I did it like my middler year because 5 years for Northeastern, you have like a middler year. And so that's like where you would be like, it's like after junior, but before senior. It's a middler. And so I got a co op at New Balance and I was working with their global digital media marketing team doing like graphic design associate work. And it really like it showed me, like, the area of graphic design that I really wanted to be in, like, I loved working for apparel, but I also loved working in kind of media marketing and, like, paid advertising in that sector, and, like, how you could still be creative and work for a specific brand, but you could also, like, see more of, like, the marketing side of things and the business side of things, and so, like, you weren't just designing, you had a role in, like, kind of coming up with a strategy of, like, "Okay, like, this video is gonna perform better than this video simply because of, like, this little change here, or this design is gonna work better than this design because of simply this little change." Like, it gets to be like a strategy, like, tiny little things, like, even the copy can be a huge make or break of, like, if somebody clicks on an ad or not. And so I realized that there's, like, a lot of strategy in this, and it really showed me the area I wanted to be in. And I'm so grateful for that experience. It was really cool working for New Balance, but I also realized I wanted to be in like a smaller company because like you feel like a little fish, especially when you're like coming out of college, you feel like a little fish. And so when I finished that co-op, because it's only a semester long, you go back into classes and I was like, there's no way I'm going back to Warby Parker. Like now that I've worked and got paid for what I actually like doing, I can't go back after that. And so I just refuse. Like the second I ended co-op, all I was doing was applying for part-time graphic design jobs. And I ended up getting a associate art director job at a magazine. And that was like my part-time job after all those years of working those like silly odd jobs. That was like my first part-time job, like doing what I liked doing. And up until I graduated, I worked there until I got the job where I'm at now. And taking that initiative to put my foot down and be like, that's it. I'm refusing to accept any other odd jobs. I'm only going to do what I like to do. It one helps you because like you're way more driven to apply because you like doing it, you love doing it. You're going to have a lot more drive. But also like it ended up making like a lot of like foundation work for me to do, like a lot of different areas I got to learn about that will someday help me in like a creative director role. And so just by collecting that experience the earlier into my career, I'm a lot more grateful for that now because I don't think I could be at the job where I'm at now with as much knowledge that I have unless I took those like steps to get into the field sooner rather than later. Because I feel bad for like a lot of other people, they don't quite have the opportunity or they can't do an internship during college because they may have to work. But if you can, like, take that extra time to try to get an internship because it really helps in the long run rather than coming out of college with not a lot of experience under your belt.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say that a lot of people do struggle like right after college because they just don't do the internships. And like that was something that I panicked like low key kind of late in my like college experience was like I think it was a junior year and I was doing like you just like kind of like odd jobs just like trying to get by and I was doing changing wheels and tires at a place in Rehoboth. Like it was fun. It was with my friends. We would just kind of like stick around basically and just have fun. But like it was rewarding in the sense that like getting like the wheel and tire package, throwing on a Jeep or something or a truck and like seeing the people happy and like you'd be like, damn, I created this with like my hands. Like we built this for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like super rewarding and was like nice, but also working with my hands doing physical labor was not something I wanted to do long term for my entire
Mm-hmm.
life. So I looked at myself internally was like also I'm going for business, I'm going for accounting. Like I have zero experience. Like what am I doing with my life? That and then like kind of like venting to my dad, he's like, "Well, do something about it then." I was like, "Oh shit, like I have to actually like do like I can't just like, "Hey dad, can you fix this for me?" Like or "Hey mom, can you fix this for me?" It's like, "Oh, I actually have to like apply myself here." And like then I started doing the research, looking for internships and like then finally getting an internship. If I don't get that internship with this corporation that was in Providence, I don't travel to Texas. I don't travel to Georgia. I don't find myself essentially. I don't create a podcast. Like
Mm-hmm.
and like you were saying, like these experiences like build on top of each other. And it's like important, in my opinion, to like
Mm-hmm.
reflect on those experiences and to like remember like how those translated into like where you are now. Because like it is important to have those moments where you have to like kind of grow and like develop and like put your foot down like you were saying and be like no I don't want to do this, I want to do this,
Yeah.
and make that pivot. And I think that's like fundamentally important in developing like character development and stuff like that. And I think it's only going to carry you further in your career and the way that you talk about your career too. I think you'll achieve pretty much everything that you're saying that you're going to achieve. I can see you going to get that and doing that, just the way that you like talk about your experiences and like in kind of like embody that into kind of like the way that you speak. And I can definitely see where
Thanks.
you're going with that. And
I mean, it's also to say that like not every school also provides that opportunity. Like I got very lucky because like I mean, I knew Northeastern was going to give me that. And I always recommend this to anybody's parents that are like, "Oh, what did you think about Northeastern?" I'm like, "Well, to be honest, like it was a good school. I think I learned a lot, but the co-op program, it's kind of an investment for your future. Like you're paying more, but you're investing in like getting a career earlier because not every school like offers a co-op program because Northeastern builds these connections with these like surrounding Boston communities, even like outside of Boston. Like we had people go to um what is it? They go out to San Francisco and work for like Tesla or like other places out there. Like they have so many connections everywhere that it's easier to get like internships at these big corporations or these big name brands that are going to look great on a resume, but also teach you a lot. And so a lot of other people, if you don't have that privilege at your school, or you don't have the privilege of being able to work like for free, because a lot of internships aren't paid, like you'd have to work a second job on top of that to afford life, plus working for free for your internship, it makes it very difficult. And it's kind of goes back to the whole college thing where we're saying like it's so expensive, but also we're not really setting up people to succeed too, because like yeah, like college is expensive, but then you also have to afford life on top of it, but then you also have to make time to get ahead and do an internship. And that's what I think, like I hope more colleges in the future like make that plan where it's like take off an entire semester. Who cares about a class? The class is not going to give you resume experience. Just work for an entire semester and then come back. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I think that's like really great that they actually do that and encourage that because, like you said, not a lot of schools do that, and I don't think it sets up a lot of people for like long term success. And like not being pushed to do that is like ridiculous. And I was literally just talking to my coworker the other day, and we were just talking about like school and like she's a little bit older, but she was talking about her experience and like talking about like classes. I'm like, I could have done this job with like maybe one intro class. Like everything that I've ever learned was on job experience, like real life experience. And I think what you're also talking a little bit too, and this will kind of like transition the conversation, is relationships. Having positive relationships and connections with people, hence the Carroll connection. It just kind of
Yeah.
all flows together all the time. A little corny plug, but like the fact of just like the school having those relationships and allowing you to like do those things are super important. And transitioning to you, Adam, talking about what your career is, relationships are super important, especially working in the fitness industry and working in physical therapy and stuff like that. How has that been for you to like learn how to kind of like coming from this kind of like my introverted self too, talking about this, like learning to like overcome that little bit of fear almost and like forming those relationships and like you said, making it like a podcast almost every single day because that's like super important.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah, I think it's just like putting yourself out there, and when there's times that it's quiet in the clinic, those are the most boring times. Like, so we always try to have conversations going, and time flies when you're like digging into somebody's life. So I think that's huge in terms of like building a connection and and making it fun. Honestly, you really get to know somebody. You get them to trust you, and that's a big part of it too. Is like the the better you are with small talk and like creating a conversation, the more they're going to be willing to like share information with you, like let you know how they're actually feeling, and not just be like, oh, like I'm okay. It's no big deal.
Yeah,
So
that's super important. And I thinking back on my experience with physical therapy, like that's exactly what like my therapist was doing too, is like asking about like what I'm doing. We'll talk about sports and like just finding that relatable piece to kind of hit home with. And like I think once you learn that skill, it really sets you up like to get further in life because like life is really about relationships. Like I've learned that the more that I've kind of gone through this podcast and like talked to more people and like even just in like my work life, just like the connections you have are everything. They kind of talk about it in college, like the network that you have is like essential, or what's the saying of the closest five people to you will dictate kind of like who you are almost. And I think that's very true. And like forming those positive relationships, learning how to talk to people, learning how to ask questions, like I would say having like a social media presence and like doing a podcast specifically allowed me to kind of like ask those questions like, oh, what's your childhood like? Oh, what do you do? Why do you do what you do? Do you like what you do?
Mhm.
And those wheels start turning. And then when you guys start talking about what you do currently and you guys obviously like what you do, or I should say more love what you do, you could see that in like the turn of the conversation. And when people talk about things that they're passionate about, that's when they light up. That's when they're more excited to talk about it. And I know for you, Angela, being in like content creating, it's very competitive. So like
Mhm.
how have you learned to kind of like take your stuff from work and like really integrate it with like social media and kind of like your own business and getting to more into like your freelance design and like trying to do things that you want to do? How has that
Mhm.
been for you making that transition onto like social media and like kind of integrating it with like work almost?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've never really been a big social media person. Like, I mean, I I posted a TikTok and it like blew up to like a million views, but it wasn't even of me. It was like a concert video. And then actually funny enough, my one of my roommates now I found off of TikTok. Like I posted like a video being like, hey, I'm looking for a roommate, and like 100 people reached out, and like it blew up, and I actually found my roommate through that. So I have random luck sometimes with social media, but at the same time, I'm very much like in my own shell. Like I never really wanted to like display my life in any way like that. So I realized in my career that like you can still be a graphic designer and still kind of below the radar. You just need to know how to attack social media in the way that it works, but to your benefit, where you don't actually need to be the person showing yourself off. Like you can show off your work, but you don't have to show off yourself. Like you don't have to be this like big icon. And so a lot I've learned, especially at my job now, is about paid media marketing and social influencers and stuff like that. You learn about how much they actually get paid. You learn about how much money people make off of these Instagram ads and Facebook ads. It's a lot of money. And like then you end up realizing, oh, this like 1 minute, 30-second video that I make can make somebody thousands of dollars off of profit from a paid ad. And you learn the inside out. And so kind of with my career now is like I have like a different perspective. It's like now I know how all of these things function from the inside. And so what I hope to continue doing in my career now, but also with freelancing, is like being able to offer maybe a consultant like to understand like, hey, like here's a creative strategy that you can work to boost your brand, or here's like a paid ad that can help you sell for profit, or this is like a design that will help give your brand more recognition or more a professional look to it, because it's like those tiny little bits of details that can really switch how people respond to your product or respond to your podcast. Like those tiny things, like a good logo, a good website experience, like a good ad, like tiny things like that. The look of it, the design of it, how it's executed is like a tiny little bit of information, but can really change a customer's like perspective. And so I think now, like when I'm trying to start a freelance career on the side, it's like it's mainly because like I still want to continue exercising. It's no interest of leaving the job that I'm at. I love the job that I'm at now, but it's like just continuing to challenge myself to like experience designing for different situations and seeing how I can help other people grow, because at the end of the day, that's just what I like to do. And I'd love to see how I can help that with other people. Like I was telling Adam the other day, like just I was at a salon and like I had a really great conversation with the woman that I was with, and I ended up giving her my information at the end and telling her that I can help design her website or a new logo for her. So it's just like stuff like that. It's just because I'm at the base of it all, I'm just interested in like the design half of it.
Yeah, I get the same way too when I look at social media stuff now. Is like I've had to learn how to market myself a little bit better and how to like actually like do social media, being on like doing the podcast and stuff.
Mhm.
And like I think for me, TikTok also helped kind of like for me get comfortable on like video, because like before this was audio only,
Mhm.
and learning the ins and out of social media. And at the end of the day, it's just a tool. Like
Mhm.
I think one of my favorite sayings that I kind of like created for myself was like social media is a tool for communication. It shouldn't be the only avenue of
Mhm.
communication, basically.
Mhm.
And essentially what I was like trying to get at with that was just like we all communicate through social media constantly, but like these face-to-face conversations like we don't really have anymore.
Mhm.
And I was kind of like we talked a little about Joe Rogan and stuff, and like he was kind of like a little bit of my inspiration. It was like I wanted to get back to that. Was like how can I like work that muscle, almost like you're talking about, is like doing your freelance stuff. It's like how do I work that muscle of communication? How do I work that muscle of like talking to people every single day? And well, every single week. And then I started doing the podcast and I started getting more comfortable talking to people. And like even in my day-to-day life, I'm just way more comfortable in my own skin because I look people in the eye every week. I talk to them every single week. I talk to new people every week. And that's like inspiring to also hear like your guys' life story, to hear what you guys do, to get a little bit of inspiration from what you guys do and like take that and run with that, and to be able to also share your guys' story.
Mhm.
I don't take that like lightly. I'm very like honored that you guys want to come on the podcast and like would want to do this and like do this together. Like this is a really cool experience to like share together, and I'm glad that you guys were willing to do this. And I know I want to go into a little bit with this with you, Adam, is with social media, creating like the fitness page for yourself. Like, what was kind of like the motivation behind that to kind of like put yourself out there in that aspect?
I would say, I think when I initially started it, Well, I guess I've had that page for a long time, and it was just initially it was just to kind of be creative and like just make something new and put it out there. Like I always had a passion for like creating new things, especially with cameras and GoPros and stuff like that. I've been doing that stuff since I was like 12. Um, but most recently, kind of relaunching the same page and like starting to put out content more consistently and like with more of a structure. The idea was like if I'm not doing it, then I'm just missing out on like all of these opportunities that could potentially come from it. So I was like, in a way, like I have to do it because if I'm not like, there's opportunities like this that have come up. There's opportunities like being an ambassador for Jeff's brand, and plenty of other connections that I've had that have been worthwhile. Um, to yeah, to just put stuff out there and like see who it reaches and see what comes back from that. And I try to make it as simple as possible, and it's literally just comes down to like being consistent and um, just staying on top of it. Um, and then it also comes back to me like it helps me stay motivated, stay focused because I know like there are certain people out there that like kind of like will reach out to me when I post something on there and be like, hey, like nice job, like, and even I went to play basketball like at a local park, with some of my friends from high school, and like guys that I haven't seen in like 6 years. Like two of them came out to me, they're like, "Dude, like I saw your stuff about the marathon. Like that's crazy. Like it makes me want to get out and run." I'm like, "Dude, like that's one person telling me that. Like that's all I need to keep rolling. Like that's awesome."
Yeah, and I think that's like the value of social media is like you don't know who you could inspire or who you could reach just by sharing something. And that was always kind of like the push, the podcast is like anyone that comes on, like you're sharing your life story. And I've had plenty of people like, well, what do I talk about? My life's not like that crazy. I'm like, that's a weird way to approach your own life. But like I think everyone has something valuable to offer. You just kind of have to tap into that. And I think allowing people to kind of talk about what they do and having that space to do it is like been one of the the best blessings that I could have ever had in my life to be able to sit across from so many different people. Like I didn't know you guys before this podcast, and like to sit down for what we're almost at a little over getting close to like 2 hours just to have
Oh wow.
conversations to like dive into real life and just talk about who we are as people and what we value. Like you don't really get to do that at bars. You don't get to do that in
Mm-mm.
passing. Like, and that's like been like the blessing with social media and like doing my podcast specifically. But I kind of want to like we're getting towards the end. I want to get a little bit into kind of like that like kind of like hustle and the grind of like creating the content a little bit. Because I know we talked a little bit about that off the podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of how do you handle that? How do you like mentally like deal with that? Because I know for myself it can be very taxing to constantly like, all right, I have to post this, I have to do the podcast, I have to create this
Mhm.
content. So like, how do you handle that for yourself?
Mm. I feel like right now, what I hope people can take away from this podcast is that like it is definitely intimidating, but it is so worthwhile once you like see the progress, when you're able to like look back and you're like, oh, I did that, I did that, I did that, and it starts to pay off. Or you even celebrate the small wins. I think right now with Adam and building his gym and like me working on trying to establish more of a freelance career on the side is like it's nice having him to kind of bounce off bounce off of. Like I love cheering him on because I see how much he's put into like his gym and like how much has come out of that. But also it like if I'm talking about what I'm doing, he's also like cheering me on. And it's so nice to surround yourself, like what you said earlier, like the five people that are around you the most are how you turn out. It's so nice to surround yourself with other people that are like minded, and that's also going to kind of push you towards success because it's intimidating, and there's gonna be a lot of times where you're like doubting yourself or doubting your worth or thinking, oh, nobody cares. But like Adam said, like it might just be one person that is actually really inspired by what you're doing, and it makes it all worth it in the end. So I think, I don't know, just finding good people to surround yourself with that are going to support you along the way, and then also really like taking a bet on yourself and believing in yourself and like just really putting everything you got into it, like that, I think you'll find at least a small bit of success with that
Yeah, I would
as long as
definitely
you have that.
co-sign that. Like that's definitely would be good advice to give to people is to constantly like just to try and to surround yourself with those people, because I like talking to you guys off air about like kind of like people I surrounded myself with wasn't encouraging me to be the best person that I
Mhm.
could be at the time. And it's nothing against those people, but you do outgrow people at a certain point. So you have to
Yeah.
kind of like pivot. And then I moved away. Like I never moved away in my entire life. I moved to Texas by myself and find new people and figure out maybe that doesn't flow with me. You pivot again. And it's just a constant pivot to try to find your people.
Mhm.
And through this podcast, I've found people like yourselves that would come on here that I could relate to, that I can have like actual like deep intellectual conversations that actually progress. And I think that's just the best thing in the world. Like I said, we are getting towards like the end of the podcast, so I do have one more question for you guys. I don't know if you guys want to take turns at answering it, but my last question would be, what would your advice be to someone who wants to pursue their passion?
You go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I would say the basis of being able to pursue something difficult is going to come from like building a strong foundation, like you're talking about. Like, yes, that can come from having a strong family, and you can grow up in an environment where you're just a strong person. I've seen plenty of people that are just like naturally just like savages. They come out and they can just do anything. And then there are people like me who like, yes, I had a great family, but I wasn't born like a killer who can just go out and just like do things. Like I had to develop that skill. So like finding something that is going to like develop the skills that will allow you to do well in the real world. So for me, that was athletics, like college athletics, where it's like a disciplined environment. You have a coach who's like, if you're not on your shit, like he's getting on your ass. Um, and then pushing even further than that was going into the military, where obviously you got drill sergeants and you got tax and all this crazy chaos and that you have to deal with, and it just like builds you. So finding something like that where it's going to build you into a stronger person, that might not look the same for everybody. Like Angela's got obviously has like different ways that she's built herself up, but finding something that sharpens you, turns you into a person that can like be consistent over time. And if you have that passion and you apply it with the consistency and discipline, then at some point it's going to work out. You just
Mhm.
like you just have to do it over time.
I think what's cool is about us both being here is that we show kind of two different perspectives of like how you can get to that. It's like you definitely had more of a rigorous route, especially with the military, and I had a lot more of just like kind of hustling on my own and like just kind of working on jobs. So I realized like this is not where I want to be. I think it just shows like two different ways you can kind of learn how to be consistent and that you gotta learn that, like, this is not the place where I wanna be, so I have to work hard to get there. I think we're two good examples of, like, different routes you can take to get there, but at the end of the day, like Adam said, having that consistency, and I think also not being afraid to fail, because if you're afraid to fail and then you just quit after that, like, you're never going to be able to learn from those last experiences. So, not being afraid to fail and not being afraid to, like, admit your wrongs and be like, "Okay, I coulda done this better. I coulda done that better. That was a really cringe moment. Like, let's not do that again." Like, just learn from your mistakes, learn from your past, and then shape what you wanna do towards the future. And
Yeah. Also, and one last thing, also realizing that every day you're at a new beginning of your own journey. Like if you say like for me, I'm talking from experience now, but like I'm at the beginning of like my journey. So like in 10 years, in 20 years, like I'm gonna have a different perspective. But like that's where the consistency over time comes in. Like just continuing to work on those skills and develop over time, but like never being like, okay, yeah, like I'm at the top. Because if I said like, oh, like I made it right now, like hell no.
no,
like
we definitely
like
haven't made it.
we're like beginning of the journey like every day and just
Yeah.
continuing to push.
But I mean, that's the most exciting part. I think we're excited for the journey that comes forward rather than intimidated by it. Really exciting.
I think that was really great answers to the question, and I just appreciate you guys for coming on this podcast and doing it together. This has actually been really great to, like you said, to get those two different perspectives, but for both people who attack what they do and are really passionate about what they do. I think this has been a great podcast. So just want to say thank you for both coming on and doing this.
Yeah, thanks for
course.
having us out here.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And
Yeah.
for you guys, if you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. You could check it out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you want to watch your podcast, you go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll and at The Carroll Connection. I am stumbling through this one today. I'm sorry, guys. But until next time, guys, peace.